So our third presenter, Dr. Diana Jerkins, who is the research director of the Organic Farming Research Foundation right now. I worked with Diana at the Department of Agriculture, where she had numerous leadership roles in the National Institute for Food and Agriculture, and led a number of programs across a whole range of things, everything from Native American outreach to ecosystems management, beginning farmer and rancher development program. She's got way too many things in her resume for me to read them all. But she's a perfect person to give us this overview of the state of the organic research portfolio. So I'm just going to leave it there.
So we've been listening to two very specific long-term research, which is phenomenal. I support long-term research, and it's very difficult to maintain those, as you're fully aware of, and so I applaud those efforts. And now we're going to shift, and OFRF has been very busy over the last couple of years at looking at what's going on, kind of the state of organic research. And we have done that through the support primarily from USDA, from the organic program, and other supporting institutions. Our mission primarily is to fund research from a multitude of stakeholders that provide funding for us, and also to do policy work to increase organic funding, both federally, state, and with other entities. So obviously the primary goal is to increase organic production and profitability. So what we have done is and constantly do is, what do organic farmers, ranchers need from this research agenda in order to become more profitable, to be environmentally sensitive, and to be socially compatible. And we've done this over the last couple of years through three major venues. One is by assessing the first time overall assessment of the USDA portfolio. The second venue was to look at our portfolio a second time. It had been done once before, between 2006 and 14, the funded projects from OFRF. And the third avenue of finding out what is the research needs is through another national survey. One was done in 2007. And we're just finishing that now. So I'm going to very briefly, and I hope you hold in your seats because I've got a lot of slides. These will be on our website and through other mechanisms, but there's so much information, I'm going to go very fast. And if you want to get into more detail, then again, you can go on the website. So what are the questions that we were looking at from the first project at USDA? We wanted to know what's been accomplished over this short-term funding initiatives. What are the priorities that they were looking at through the request for proposals? Did they engage producers, which is very critical to us in our funding, and it's a direct priority for us to have on-farm research? And were outcomes available to farmers, because that's really the goal of any research that is funded, along with basic information and scientific endeavors. And then were things effectively delivered to the farmers in order to allow them to use the information that was created. You'll see there was a wide array of projects on different topics, primarily vegetables, which between dairy and vegetables, as you probably are aware, are the primary activities within organic productivity. As far as agronomic crops, you will see that the grains, the corn, soybean, and wheat were the primary projects that were looked at, along with a smattering of other different types of agronomic crops. And rice and cotton, which are major commodities, had two projects between the two of those. So there are areas that could be increased in productivity, because rice is a major grain for eating. And so if we want to do organic production, this would be a prime area for increased research there. As far as livestock, and you'll see this both in OFRF funding as well as USDA funding, a large dairy component, which, you know, if you go to the grocery store and get organic milk, it's been a major area of production. followed by sheep and egg and poultry, and then very few projects after that. So we saw in both of these reviews that livestock research, health, nutrition is vastly underfunded and in need of continuing research. I threw in a couple. I'm just going to briefly go through a couple of projects from all of these. Examples of the California projects: nutrient management and organic systems nutrient management was a primary area of investigation. So fertility and pest management was looked at UC Santa Cruz. How do you manage your nitrogen, which is important whatever your production system is, and the trade-off between yield and nitrogen leaching. The research in farmer innovation in increasing nitrogen cycling. You've heard from both of these examples how it differed nitrogen loss and increase with your soil organic matter can be improved in organic systems. So at University of California was a project to look at monitoring of these nitrogen results. Other California projects was on disease management and functional agricultural biodiversity. Soil pathogens and pests, again, in any production system is a major area of concern. And so they compared that management practices with conventional plots at Davis and looking at soil nematodes and microarthropods biodiversity.
We can fix it real quick.
No, that's okay. We can go with this. If you want to hear the other slides that I'll be presenting tomorrow. This was, again, part of the long-term project. Also, California study at Davis was nutrient dynamics and functionality of biodiversity, comparing organic farming. This led to wider studies and the California Energy Commission white paper on climate change impacts. We're OFRF and some of our board members are very interested in climate change and impacts and the ability of organic systems in particular to be able to remediate and modify those impacts in agricultural systems. So this might be one area that both USDA as well as OFRF will increase in their funding later. Farmer research networks. USDA is very interested in outreach, extension, and educational activities because you can do basic research, but again, if that research is not extended out, it does not get to the audience that is needing it. So a collaborative research and extension network was developed in Santa Cruz. And another very important relationship between OFRF and USDA is that many of our projects are considered seed grants. And this will allow these either new researchers or researchers that want to transition into organic research, allows them to get some base data, and then they will go into USDA and apply for larger grants. So the California strawberry study we funded them twice and for several $1,000s, and then they went to USDA and got several $1 million for long-term studies. So this is an example about the synergy of how one mechanism, one institute of funding will lead to much broader, and that's our hope in our funding. They did 4-year rotations, looked at carbon sequestration, which is extremely important in organic funding now, and because of the ability for organic systems to sequester carbon, and we heard about that this morning, and then nutrient management. Some highlights, general highlights at the USDA projects, seeds and breeds over, I'd say the last 5 years within NIFA overall, as well as the organic programs at breeding, particularly more traditional breeding has become a higher priority and importance. So there's been funding projects, organic seed project, particularly in Cornell and New England area, 25 new varieties, and they engaged over 200 farmers in this breeding effort. Organic potato project at Wisconsin has been ongoing, and they were funded for growing a grower network and new breeding varieties also. as Matt loves to say, and he said this morning, trying to go from the basic research to more systems type research. So USDA has funded integrated holistic research on topics such as soil quality and weed control, cover crops, rotation, reduced tillage. So looking at multiple aspects of the management system and the production system, not just the incremental single research objective. And the results, I think, from a scientific standpoint and certainly an adoption standpoint are much different than if you look at the single aspects, and I think you alluded to that. Again, integration of the farmer into and students into this. Students were funded on farms, professional meetings, a lot of eOrganics, webinars, etc. So a lot of extension of the information was given to from the projects the USDA has funded. So one of our objectives, and which we requested, was to look at what are some of the recommendations for future funding. And again, I'll reiterate what I said this morning, that both USDA as well as OFRF are looking at what do you think. So if you have recommendations, you can either chat with us, Matt, today or throughout the conference, and or send us information to our website. That's part of our goal, is collecting that information, because we're representing you, both the researcher and the farmer. So continue expansion of funding, obviously, always want to do that. Continue farmer participation, encourage innovative approaches. Farmers are very innovative in how they approach things because they have to, because things change over time. Insect pests change over time, etc. Fund proposals to underrepresented commodities. You saw how, for example, in the livestock dairy was primary and it dwindled down. Do we need to fund these other areas? And also to underserved regions. We saw both in OFRF and USDA, the southern region was not as well funded in some of the minority communities. And the reason for that is because the southern region does not have as much organic acreage. So it's a chicken and egg. Do you increase that acreage, therefore they have more research needs, or is it just other areas are more competitive? So they are looking into that. Transitioning over to OFRF review, and this report is on our website now, so that's where the view now. That was my little reminder to let you know that. What are the impacts from all the funding that we have done? We asked similar questions. What kind of projects have we funded? Who was funded? Where were they funded? And did they yield practical outcome information? This gives you an idea of where over $3 million in 315 research projects have been performed, both United States, Canada, and Mexico. Primarily, you'll see there's a lot in California. Again, the question, chicken and egg, is that because California is such a major organic producer and so much acreage in that, or is it because the other areas have just not been as competitive? But we certainly fund all over the country, so we're open to that. Primarily, historically, we've done research and education. Right now, the current RFP is out until February 8th, I believe. And right now, we're looking just at research. And we're considering, do we want to continue education, extension, outreach, other types of funding. Projects you can see are clustered. It's not real clear, but again, more pest management, crop productivity, some livestock, and disease management. So the typical problem areas have been funded and represented in what we have funded. Examples of some of the projects that have been funded. In California, there was a project on organic Brussels sprouts. I don't know if you know that California does 70 to 80% of the Brussels sprout production nationally, so it's a very important crop. Organic research looking at aphids and moth damage and the control through biological controls. Another project, this was done in California at Santa Cruz on the resistance, increased resistance of soil-borne disease and weed management through the use of, they used soil disinfectant, and also mustard cake, which is made up of different mustard species, and it's put in the soil as a disinfectant, and have found good weed control and disease control in this. And this is very important because this crop receives quite a lot of fumigation and other chemical usage. So it's very important in organic production. Other research examples, GMO is a major question of organic producers due to cross-contamination, and also varieties that will not be contaminated by GMO. So contamination of organic corn, we funded organic ready maize population that is genotypically incompatible so that they won't have this problem, and this is a major economic boon to organic producers. Developing nutrition and organic barley grains are very important in the organic production, not only for the food consumption by people, but also for feeding of organic livestock. And so there's major interest in this area. And so we funded several projects around this. This is a picture from Washington State by Kevin Murphy out in the field. And they developed barley varieties specific to the Pacific Northwest. Breeding is very important overall nationally, but it's very difficult because it is more site-specific. So we could probably put all our money just in breeding and get our varieties that are compatible or better for organic systems, which has always been a question in the research agenda. Are the traditional, conventional breeds and varieties compatible with organic production? From the breeding experiments, another project funded 3 new corn varieties that came out last year, and the seed that was produced from that, they created seed, and it was sold out within months. So the demand is definitely there, and this is supposed to be very sweet corn in tasting, and I've not had any, but I'm waiting. I'll grow some and see if it works in the southern U.S. Career impacts. Many of the researchers, like I said, have been young researchers, many student-funded research projects, and they have changed literally the career of these students that before would be in agriculture, but now they're going to be in organic agriculture. And if you look at the retirement ability of researchers in around the world, you'll see that we need to educate and have students not only in scientists but in agriculture. Agriculture has a huge career advantages and openings, and we don't have replacements, and definitely in organic. So we have funded a lot of projects that the students come back and say, I would have never done this if I hadn't been part of this research project, and now I'm sold. That's what I'm going to do. And they're getting hired. Other highlights is we do a lot of farmer engagement. Our RFP reflects that priority is to fund on-farm site research and have the farmers participate in the research activities that we're doing because they have the questions and they want the answers. And then they work with students also and also do a lot of extension work. The last bit that we have done is the NORA project, National Organic Research Agenda. We're just compiling the data on this now. Last winter, we went to a lot of conferences, got feedback and stakeholder sessions. We did a formal survey from the NOP certified producers, and over 1,000 organic farmers participated in this. We asked farmers basically, what research do you want done? It's very simple. Soil health, high priority, 75, almost 75% listed soil health as a high priority, and weed management came in second at almost 67%. I don't think this is anything new and great information, but it just reinforces what research demands are. The research priorities across the board, fertility management, nutrition, insect pest management, water management, disease, pollination, and economics. You'll see that there's slight differences in the different regions. Weed management was across all regions, but there are certain, based on what crops and the climates within those regions, what is needed. 74% again is soil health. We also got respondents from we also got verbal communication from the respondents about different things, and it's very interesting when you're trying to put that information into a report, because you never know quite what they're going to say. Soil biology, tillage problems, carbon problems, under soil health again, how can I reduce tillage, weed control, no-till methods for organic. Again, this is pretty traditional. Rotation, people want information on that. How can they use cover crops? Weed management, top priority of 67%. Ragweed was an example of one of the respondents. Breeding, again, very important. They really want to know and have new varieties, everywhere from basil to herbs to more traditional crops. Insect pests, 51% said that this was a high priority. Livestock, again, in this study, they were asking for more livestock research, which reflects what has not been done and is needed of being done. And climate change is an increasing question to farmers and ranchers, and pollination problems. GMO impacts. We didn't find that they were as concerned as we thought, but they're still concerned. So I don't want to say that this is not a concern, but it's still a need that needs to be looked at, particularly in the Midwest where there's so much GMO being grown. Pesticide contamination is a major concern, and this is where some of our policy work comes in. Pressing market and economic problems. Everyone wanted to know about how to be more profitable, of course, and meeting the Food Safety Modernization Act requirements. This is of quite concern to them. California, you can see irrigation was the top priority. I wonder, after a rain for a whole week. And so California, certainly that was a high priority for 65% of how can they manage water more efficiently. So concluding, research projects vary by region. Commonalities of weed management, soil health is the highest priority. We're looking now at our next rounds of our research agenda, and then we will make a formal report to USDA and hopefully answer some of their questions. And like I said, we are accepting proposals, so if you're interested, please let us know and spread the word. I want to acknowledge all of our funders. We have a great team at OFRF in our research division. We also have a great advisory team that's made up by many of our stakeholders. And Washington State helped us with the survey results. And of course, USDA, amongst others, was a major funder in these activities. So I thank you, and I welcome any questions.